You know, without comparison, we just don't appreciate value of anything, whether it is IIT versus others and so on. Here, I actually learned what it means to be a dedicated teacher. I had Professor, Kustagi, then Professor Birnale and so on. Amount of effort they would put in, and that's where I learned actually that, to make sure every student understands what is supposed. Similarly, even the industrial work. There was a industry consulting project. It was from a manufacturing industry here. The industrialists came to our lab because we had a properly maintained metrology lab as per ISO standard. The problem was very simple. There is a production gauge and an inspection gauge. What was passing through in production gauge was failing. The components were failing. I got scared because industry problem is scaring. On what basis do I judge that? Professor Kustagi guided me, you do this. We were doing all the calibration. That was actually true. Now, how do I defend that? He told me to read the ISO standard. That is how it is supposed to be.
Correct. We'll come to Anand sir as well. As Rajaram sir just mentioned that industry expects the students to come and start working. And there are problems which are sometimes unfathomable. You don't know. The students are not taught. They know, they have the acquired knowledge, but the industry expects the required knowledge. Industry expects students to be plug and play. You bring them day zero productivity is what they expect. So you are an investor in so many companies. Do you feel this day zero productivity and plug and play kind of a thing would work? Is it feasible?
I think I'll go to root of this problem. A lot of people are educators here. If you look at the assessment of students, there are 2 buckets or 3 buckets that every school would put students under. Singapore does it very formally. They have a different school for talented and different school for untalented. Right? They do it very formally. But here it is done subtly, where at certain point of a time, school already buckets people and say, Shana, improve agbeku, or dhadru, right? It happens. It's very natural. It's been happening for ages. It is
fast learners, slow learners, laggards, we have that.
I have a different take on this. And coming from a corporate background where I've worked with different kinds of people, I've worked with people who are considered to be untouchables from a job perspective, right? Saying that you cannot, get these guys into this particular role. Only the question of identifying a particular person's strength and working on it, I've seen wonders happen, right? My belief is every child is special and every child has got something special in them, right? I'll give a very simple example. Day for yesterday, we are doing science projects in 5 different rural schools where there are 150 students involved in developing some innovations. So there were 4 students sitting in a class with this teacher, only addressing 4 students on subjects. When I asked what's happening, they said, these kids have fallen behind. So we are training them because they have to sit for the exam. The same students who were supposed to come and work on the project, and when they saw me, they jumped up, came upstairs, right, and showed all the innovations that they had done. Okay. And those are not simple innovations. They have done very complex projects, all by themselves, visualizing, problem, solution, everything else. So the question here is, again, going back to what Naveen was talking about, addressing and trying to identify what the purpose of that kid would be, right? Link that to the talent that the kid has, right? And groom that part of the story, then I think we'll have a very different country on our hands.
But sir, a lot of school teachers, I don't know how many are here, we have a class strength of 60, 70, 80 also. How is it even possible to do this?
Even in corporate scenario where there are teams of 100 and 200 and 500 people, this is inevitable. It's a waste of time trying to groom somebody for something that they are not meant for. Yeah, I will give you an example. I mean, there cannot be a better example than this. I was talking to somebody also again in the morning today. My daughter, when she was 9 years old, 8 years old, had no interest in studies. Zero. She would come and she would get down to play and then come back and sleep. and go back next day, no books, nothing, not interested. When we came back to India for holidays, he saw a dog which was lying on the street, hurt and things like that. She asked, who's going to take care of this? We said, nobody. There's no doctor here. There's only one doctor. He opens at 9 in the morning, government doctor, and closes at 5. And, there's no doctor here. She then asked, what do I have to do to help? I said, you should become a vet doctor. How? By doing this studying here. She was weak in science, right? But that day she made up her mind saying that I want to be a vet doctor. And I'm glad to say she's finishing her vet doctorship in Poland by March this year.
That was the trigger for her.
That was the trigger.
Yeah.
She completely changed. She completely switched over. She cannot mug, she's not that kind of a person. But she took the trouble to do it because her goal and the
Right.
whole, the purpose was right in front of her.
Right.
So I'm sure there are many students who are incapable of doing something,
Right.
but they are capable of doing something else.
Dr. Mugri, I want to come back to you. A lot of colleges today gauge their success and they blow their trumpet, and I have been a part of that entire thing, where placements determine the success of your entire pedagogy or the experience of getting that degree. So do you feel that there should be there is much more needed on part of the colleges than just placements?
Definitely, some more things can add, but placement definitely has to be the primary focus, because that is where majority of the students coming out are going to land into some or the other industrial setup to be the best that they can be. And the things that definitely can be added to this are building a more robust entrepreneurial culture within the institute, where more job givers can come out, even though they can go out and start smaller enterprises which can provide employment to even the local regions. That would be, again, my wish list. And things are changing. I'm glad to admit that. And second thing is, in terms of the quality of the students coming, again, I come back to the same environment for students to be creative and also to, learn how do I apply. I might have studied 10 subjects, but how do we apply? My whole career was built on one topic that I studied in my engineering, that was microwave engineering. And that one subject, in one subject of communication engineering, there was one topic called microwave devices and power supplies. And I built my whole career on that.
Okay.
So I didn't have to really know and go deep into all the subjects, to all the aspects, but I had to understand one thing and sort of get triggered by it in some fashion, like how the student was triggered. At some point in time, it triggered me to start that industry, and today we are specialists in microwave engineering. So it is about students applying and solving problems, and one of the things which I would highly, again coming from a personal experience, I perhaps would have failed in my project because I couldn't complete my project. I was trying to apply, we're building one solution for making the Jacquard power loom electrified with the software, and we could hardly progress to 20% of that problem solving. And when we presented the idea, the examiner at that time fortunately could see the effort and the mistakes that we had learnt and the learning that we had, and he said, okay, I'll pass you. Not give you a lot of score, but I'll pass you. But otherwise, it was a very good case of failure.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is, if the environment is driven towards getting success, then students will find shortcuts, their own shortcuts. They will go to get ready-made projects. They will go to buy projects. There are a lot of industries today, and I'm sure you will not be shocked to hear this, in places like Bangalore, who survive on student projects. Their business model is, they have ready-made solutions of projects, and those students go, they pay 20,000, 30,000, take the ready-made project, they learn how to explain it, give a demonstration, and they come and do it, because for them, the pressure is that if the project doesn't work, I'm going to fail. I think if the management or the teaching system can communicate that it's not important that your project works, what is important is that we need to see how much work you have done. And what efforts
how
you
you
have taken.
develop that project, what you learned from it.
How did you go about solving the problem? What was your approach?
Right.
And and it doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
Right.
I think if that message is strongly conveyed to students, students won't be afraid to try.
Right.
They won't be afraid to experiment.
This is a situation I have faced in the industry as well as an HR manager. We always have expectations which we feel that the employees never meet, and the onus is, the ball is always tossed
yeah.
from one court to the other.
Just to add, it is not just with engineering college or anything. I think it's general in life.
Yes, yes.
We are tuned to applaud for success.
Yeah.
And we fail to say that it's okay to fail. It's okay to experiment. If that one message is given strongly, I think a lot more courage will come into every mind that is
We
budding.
have defined success in some set parameters. I think success can be defined in many other ways. As you said, learning what not to do could also be part of that success. I'm just talking about the ball being tossed back and forth between the management, the faculty, and it keeps happening. So coming back to Raj sir. Yeah, please.
See, my own corporate experience, when I started working in different places, in the fag end of my career, I worked as intrapreneur within the companies, as in trying to build small teams, a job which a team of 30 members would do, a 3-member team would do, right? That's what we built. But it was on the success of the program. In fact, even today, the bosses of those companies always take a reference of this particular project and say, I wish we had more projects like this. A 3-member team can build a $30 million product, right? The success of that, the whole process, there is only one success parameter. What Prakash was saying, that we allowed failure.
In fact, to add to that, Google has, kept aside a certain time and funds for projects that should fail, because that's where the learning comes from.
Yeah.
So, taking the question to Raj sir, as a management person, out of the 4 panelists, you are representing management real time, sir. So, my question to you will be, you have taken your institute autonomous. Does it actually give you the freedom to craft your syllabus? I'm not talking about curriculum, because curriculum we can design the way we want to, but syllabus, do you have that freedom, and what are you doing with it?
Yeah. Autonomy is a wonderful tool for an institution, established institutions such as GIT, to bridge the gap between themselves and what they could have been if they were a university.
Correct.
It comes close to that.
Yes.
Autonomy, however, is a tool that has to be used very carefully.
Right.
We have to be very vibrant on certain areas, such as, for example, use the autonomy structure to define your board of studies.
Yes.
Very, very intelligently.
Right.
Furthermore, the electives that you can almost design and craft, okay, those have to be done very, very intelligently. That is the optimal use of autonomy.
Right.
Okay. And of course, framing the general syllabus also is also a big part of autonomy. You can be far more dynamic than, let us say, the university structure. But the key there is the persons who are part of the restructuring of whatever you are doing, those have to be chosen very, very intelligently for your benefit. Not to celebrate what you are, but to see what the gaps are, what the dark spots are.
You mean the persons on the BOS or the faculty?
On the BOS, and then also, because ultimately the champions are your faculty.
Yes.
The BOS has to take all the inputs, design it, but the
delivery has to be by the faculty.
So some things have to be learned again.
Yes.
Have to be freshly learned. One important point I wish to state is a very important constituency in this whole subject of accepting, tolerating failure as a step on the road to success. Parents.
Yes.
Parents have to understand and internalize that a failure here, a failure there is not a permanent failure. It is not a roadblock.
Right.
It is actually a sign of great learning if taken properly.
Yes.
That also is a very important thing, and management such as ourselves and many other managements need to engage with parents to help them understand the new paradigm.
Right.
That's a very important thing that we need to do.
Right. I come to Dr. Rajaram. Sir, all of the panelists are saying that a lot of this responsibility, the onus is also on training the teachers, training the trainers, which institutes like the TAMSH is also doing. You feel that training or retraining the teachers, because they have had their education maybe 20, 25 years ago, which may not be relevant today in these changing times, as Prakash sir said, that a classroom is no more the only source of learning. They have much more than that. So you feel that this could be a solution to bridging the gap, training the trainers?
Yes, definitely. But do we see that all these demands are coming from just one source? That is, this IT and technology enabled industry needs lots of resources who can be productive from day one. And that's the demand they have put on the academia. Whereas why academia is taking it lying down, I don't know. Hypothetically, it is not actually hypothetical, because I happen to facilitate a pro bono learning center for all the so-called unemployable graduates. I found that is a fraud on the whole country. The IT industry, 30 years ago, that is about early 90s, when I started my research, when they needed hands in thousands, they would recruit anybody, absolutely anybody. It was a joke in IITs, whenever the Wipro Infosys came for campus recruitment, that trespassers would be recruited. That was a joke. Actually, they were in such a hurry to come first and take away the, top ones. The interviewer, only 2-minute interview. Do you know the difference between PC and PCXT? If the answer is yes, you come from right side. If the answer is no, you come from left side.
Okay.
Anyway, you are taken. It was a fraud, right? I remember. So I told you just what happened then. So the demand is entirely, if we recognize, if the demand is coming entirely by this insatiable demand from IT-enabled industry, which in any case, most of them are not doing any original R&D. Even our top of the companies, 90% or 80% of their revenue comes from maintaining 50-year-old mainframe systems even today. So what for? Not only that, we think that is IIT education being analytical, it is better. But look at what do they do. I'll just give you. Actually, what I have heard from the horse's mouth, Russi Modi, what an icon he was, who built Tata Steel, which is one of the most respected, corporate today in India, even today, since then. He rose to the ranks of being a chairman right from the bottom. He had to work on shop floor as an engineer. He was the chairman of Board of Governance of IIT Kharagpur, and he would attend every convocation, he would address the students. I have heard him personally say in my convocation, when I received my PhD or MTech, that whatever you do to these brilliant kids in 4 years, when they come to my industry, it takes me another 4 years to make them unlearn whatever they learned. Now what happens to an IIT graduate who has been pushed, rewarded for being better, analytical, he can solve like this, 100 problems in a minute or in an hour and so on. None of this engineering industry is going to cater to his satisfaction, his aptitude. So what do? Not less than 80% of them sooner or later land up in the US doing fund management job.
Engineers.
Yes, IIT engineers.
IIT engineers.
Right? Any day, engineers from KLS GIT would be better, more useful, and this is statistics everywhere.
Look to your right, sir. Just look to your right. There is an engineer who is in finance.
No, it is in public domain. What is the contribution of IITians on which we have invested so much? And they are the analytical guys, right? In our defense, DRDO or CIR, you take any of our public sector or Indian industry? Hardly. Similarly, just like Rishi Modi, chairman of Tata Steel, hardcore engineering industry, what he had to say about the best of the engineers we think we are producing. Similarly, Ambanis are the chairman of IIM Bangalore. They send their management executives for executive training program in IIM. I have a friend there. He invited me to join the faculty. I didn't. So what he used to say is, they sponsor them, they pay good money, and they tell, as chairman, he has a right to ask what does he want from the institution to be delivered to his executives who are sponsored. And what Ambanis tell the faculty there conducting this executive workshop is, make them understand money. I don't want all your management fundas. Make them understand, make them baniyas. This is the requirement.
Right.
This is the, if you are in management category or management hierarchy, you need to understand money, every paisa of that. If you are in engineering, you need to understand the nuts and bolts of that. More analytical engineering, more analytical management, you are going moving away from this, and the only industry that can satisfy that can actually harness that kind of analytical ability is only financial industry, because you just work with numbers there.
Right.
So this is the unfortunate,
Yes.
part.
So, being in education, I am also a counselor, and last week I wrote an article in Deccan Herald teaching students who know more than you. And this was my first-hand experience, which I'd like to share, is that at a school, 8th, 9th, 10th standard students, I give them a questionnaire and I just ask them, how much money would you like to make in your first job? And they wrote a particular figure. I said, how would you like to do that? They told me about Dogecoins, they told me about cryptocurrency and NFTs. NFTs, I knew, I spoke to them about non-fungible tokens. The teachers didn't know about this. And it was not just a fluke that they just mentioned, rattled those names. When I asked, how do you do with this? They told me how cryptocurrency is mined. They know about it. I said, how do you know this? I Googled it. I came across this term, I Googled, I liked it. I know how to work with cryptocurrency. I'm going to make my millions in that because that's the easiest way. This is a generation we are going to, so I feel the teachers also need to stay ahead. What we learned 20 years ago, what we learned 25 years ago, our degrees are relevant, but our knowledge still needs to be up. And Kadko sir, I need to come to you. Does internship play a role in all this? In fact, anybody of you can also join me in this. Do we have good internships where our students get first-hand exposure to the industry so that the gap can be bridged to a lot of extent?
Yeah, it does. It does as long as the interest of the student matches what they are taking, and students believe that there's a future in it, right? See, I'm a storyteller, so I have to give you examples, right? So my the younger daughter, totally afraid of insects and this and that and everything else over a period of time. Her interest is in eco-science, right? A kid who could not take a butterfly sitting on her at some point of a time in her life, she went and saw a post-mortem of a dead elephant when she did an internship in Gudalur near Ooty. Everybody else was fainting. She was the only one who stood up there. It is only because, one, she had interest.